Welcome to Earful of Dirt, bringing you the latest Major League Rugby news, views, and abuse. Now here are your hosts, Aaron, Dan, and Victor.
How's it going, everyone? Tonight, we're having a special guest, hopefully a recurring guest at some point. Grant Cole will be with us this evening to talk about Hurricane Harvey relief and all the great stuff that the rugby community is doing on relief of, the great state of Texas. Then we'll take a look at where MLR might be headed in the next few years, hit on some expansion possibilities, some stadium stuff, foreign confidence, questions from Bob, the tweet of the week, and even more today on episode 3. Victor, to you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Earful of Dirt. Good evening. So, once again, guys, we now have today the famous Mr. Grant Cole, who, by the way, is a rugby commentator and a writer for the famous website, This is Texas Rugby, which I recommend you to visit, by the way, quite often as well, to stay up to date on the hottest topics surrounding rugby in the beautiful state of Texas, Lone Star State. Grant, sir, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Victor, for having me. I've looked forward to the possibility of being on Earful of Dirt. I've always said that the group of enthusiasts who first get together and start talking about rugby in the USA the way you guys are doing are the ones who are going to be on the cutting edge. And I really admire that about you. I feel kind of alone sometimes. I'm just out there talking about Texas rugby and nothing else. But you guys are really out there. You're connecting from all across the country together. And you're talking about something that isn't even up and running yet, which is almost unbelievable. And if you talk to the guys in the MLR like I do, they really love what you're doing. They think this is the kind of stuff that they wanted to see after the league started, but they're really happy to see that it's happening even before the league gets going.
Thank you for your kind words, sir. Thank you for your kind words.
Yeah. So thanks, Grant. And go ahead and feel free to say and throw in your opinion later on. But the big stuff is what's going on in Houston. And I've been, we all have seminal control over our social media. So we've been retweeting everything you've been putting out, everything Rugby Relief has been putting out. But the response effort that the rugby community is throwing together is amazing.
It really is, Aaron. Seeing I've laid some challenges out there to some people who, really should be challenged on what they can do with their pocketbooks or with their volunteer time, and it's being answered in spades. And I'm flabbergasted by what's happening. So if you guys if anybody who's watching this hasn't caught on yet, you go to rugbyrelief.org/Harvey. And that's going to take you to a page where you can read about what's going on with rugby release efforts in response to Hurricane Harvey. And, if you've been living under a rock for the past week or you've been in a coma or whatever, then you don't know that Hurricane Harvey basically dumped a 1,000-year flood on Southeast Texas. And when I say Southeast Texas, I'm talking not just Texas, but Louisiana. I mean, you had flooding from New Orleans all the way down the coast to Rockport and Corpus Christi. Houston got hit particularly hard. Maybe that's a way of geography more than anything, but it got hit pretty hard. And a lot of the reasons Houston's getting some of the first news about it is because 6.1 million people live in this county. Now, over 11.9 million people were affected overall, and that's a huge number. It's kind of hard for us to wrap our head around. But there's a lot of people displaced from their homes. There are homes that have been inundated with water. And when I say inundated, I don't just mean a foot or two of water in the house. I'm talking there are homes that the water was in their second story. And you had a foot of water in the second floor. Yeah, so my kid, he's been out there in the fields for 4 days now, ripping drywall out of houses, ripping carpet and carpet padding out of houses, taking furniture out for people. And these are people who've just lost everything. I mean, literally their baby books are gone. All their pictures are ruined. There's just, there's nothing left of their life anymore. Their favorite chair is not even there. I mean, how many of us have a favorite chair we sit back on and watch the game in? All that stuff that we're used to is gone. So what Rugby Relief does is they help these people reclaim their homes, reclaim their lives, and they try to do it in a respectful way, understanding that these people have lost everything. And the reason it's rugby is because Justin Pigeon and Nikki Buttons and Laura Sow and Sarah Drake and Maddie Winstein and Chief, I can't remember Chief's last name, I can't even pronounce it, but she's a Master Chief, I think, in the Coast Guard. And they all got together and said, hey, we can make a difference. And in the Baton Rouge floods of about a year and a half ago, I believe, they got in there with and helped 40 homes get demoed and ready for rehab, taking the mold out, taking all the critters out that get you. You'd be amazed. My son taking drywall out of the house the other day, found a snake's nest with 2 eggs in it. So, I mean, yeah.
No, thank you.
So, I mean, there's all kinds of challenges to doing this kind of work. And Rugby Relief they're made up of some people who have all done this work separately themselves, and they came together to do it in Baton Rouge and to help out. They got 120 volunteers overall to come in over a few weeks. They worked on 40 homes with 120 volunteers. Well, we don't even have all the water receded in Brazoria County yet. That's the county just south of Harris County. There's still homes in Brazoria County that have 8 foot of water in it. And, once we get done with Houston, we're just going to have to move south and east over to the Beaumont area and down to Brazoria County and start working on those homes as well and helping these people reclaim them if they can. If not just, they're going to have their homes bulldozed down for some reason. And that's terrible if you think about it. And so this is what Rugby Relief does. They bring volunteers in. A lot of times they reach out to the rugby community, but they'll take any volunteers who want to sign up. Aaron, you did some work this week.
Yeah. So if anyone is into the supplement industry, there's a friend of mine. He's a friend of mine because I know him. His name's Mark Lobliner. He's the chief marketing officer of tigerfitness.com, and he owns several supplement brands. The biggest one that people may or may not know is called MTS Nutrition. He just did a big fundraiser for the Semper Fi Fund a couple weeks ago, raising $60,000 for an event called Real Weights for Real Heroes. And he, on Twitter, he's like, hey, I'm going to Houston. I just need to know who to go with. And I said, hey, Mark, these are good people. Go with them. And, got everything, got all the connections crossed, dot the I's and dot the T's, and he's going to get picked up by the folks at Rugby Relief on the 13th of September and stay there until the last possible moment on the 15th, doing work with Rugby Relief. So you have high-level corporate executives with multiple companies in the Inc. 500 willing to go and help. And I don't know many others like that, but so it's like, he's a good person. So what did I say? I need to hook him up with good people that I may not know, but I have indirect connections with, because I know Grant, and Grant knows all these people. So I know they're going to be good people and he'll be taken care of. And my friend Mark will be able to get things done the right way. So.
Well, and one of the things I hope to do while Mark's here is get him on the This is Texas Rugby Facebook Live in the hopefully from the war room there at the Strikers offices, and have him talking with me about Rugby Relief and his experiences there. Mark Lobliner, he's skipping Olympia Week, Mr. Olympia Week to come to this. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's some serious business for him.
Yeah. So he likes to meet people. I've gone to a Fit Expo. He likes to talk to his customers. I mean, he interacts with his customers via email, Facebook, Twitter, what have you. He will respond. But the Olympia and the Arnold are probably the two biggest shows that there's stuff going on, but he'll be in meetings for half that time. and making deals. And if you're in the supplement industry, you go to those trade shows to make money, not just to meet your customers and your fan base, but to make money. So for him, he put Fixing Houston above an event where he could, make a significant deal, and that says a lot. And it means that he has to put in work, weeks after the fact. But, when you're running like crazy like him and, the Tony Ridnells of the world, high-performing corporate level executives, you don't sleep much. You don't need sleep that much. You've just evolved to that lifestyle, and you run at full speed for 20, 21 hours a day.
Well, I can't wait to meet him. I think that Mark Lobliner is definitely a real American hero in this respect. I can't imagine giving up the kind of business that he could make at Olympia to come and give of himself like that. And that's some serious stuff. And that's the volunteerism we're talking about. And one of the things that, like, if you listen to Sam Windsor and Matt Truville talk about on our cast we did the last 2 days, they talk about the inclusiveness of rugby. And we all know the four of us are here mainly because this is the inclusiveness of rugby, right? And Rugby Relief is the same way. We don't really care if you're a rugby-related person and your house needs help. Just about on every case, we've gone to somebody's house that knows somebody in rugby or is related to somebody in rugby. We start working on those houses, and we just start working down the street. It's just, goes on like that. Yeah, we get calls in, and people request our help through the website, but it doesn't really matter how they get to us. It matters that we're out there doing the work in the fields, and that's really important. And I really think it's important that the Strikers have donated their space. I mean, these are nice offices, okay? These are nice offices, and that's pretty important, right? That they lower their space, and so it's really nice. Dan Payne, I contacted Dan Payne right after this worked, but right after this all started, and said, "Hey, is there any way we can leverage our Gatorade partnership with USA Rugby to help these guys out?" And you know what? Payne came through. Okay, I gotta say, he and his interns came through. Kevin Shellac at PepsiCo, he's Gatorade sports marketing professional to NFL and NCAA football. Okay, that's his job. This is a guy who's pretty high up. He orders 3 pallets of Gatorade, 1 fruit punch, 1 orange, 1 lemon lime, 5 cases of 6-gallon powder mixes, 5 cases, 10-gallon coolers for the powder, mixing ones, 500 32-ounce squeeze bottles, 20,000 cups, and 300 towels, just to send to help Rugby Relief. And that's the kind of response we're getting. And it's really important that those kind of responses keep on coming, because the longer they come, the more money we're able to the more stuff we get in supply-wise, the more money the Rugby Relief gets in so that they can buy supplies, the more volunteers that they can call on and support while they get out there and do the work. So that's really important. RugbyRelief.org/Harvey. There are 4 buttons there for volunteers, for hosts, for donations, and for requesting help. Please, if you want to do your part here, that's where you go.
Hey, Grant, I was going to ask you too. Sorry about that, Aaron. So you mentioned you got the 4 buttons there, and you do have an opportunity for folks to help out. So I'm not a CEO, and I'm not sure I can make it to Texas anytime soon. What's my involvement? How can I contribute to this relief effort?
So any of your donations. So one thing about Rugby Relief I like is the members, the guys who run it, the guy and girls who run it, they don't take any pay from this. Every cent you give goes to supporting the operations of Rugby Relief. And the operations are people in the field. They're buying wheelbarrows. They're buying face masks. They're buying gloves. You're buying tape and trash bags and sledgehammers and crowbars and brooms. You're buying all that stuff that's needed to actually get the work done in these houses. So if you give $10, maybe it's just $10, but that's 2 brooms. Okay, so if you go to the donate button and you can't come in and help, and that's fine. but you want to help out some way, give $2 or $10 or whatever, and you're helping these guys in their operations.
So for me, like you talked about how the Strikers donated office space. When I was trying to word the post on our Earful of Dirt Facebook page about it, I didn't like the word donate, and I understand this is semantics, but the Strikers have made themselves a part of their community. Like, they've made themselves a part of the rugby community. So I said deployed. So they deployed office space as a command center for rugby relief.
That would be accurate.
Because they know who their community is, and they're committing resources that they have that are unique to the area. So they're like, hey, this is yours. Let's go.
So are you guys familiar with what CBRE is?
CBR.
No, unfortunately.
CBRE is they are a commercial real estate service company, and they're worldwide. They're a global company, and they actually own and operate the building that the Strikers are in. So this is actually, it's not just the Strikers giving this deploying this space to help rugby relief. It's also CBRE. So because this is everything that's in there has got their name on it, okay? And I mean, this is their use. This is their North American offices at Houston. So it's a pretty serious little digs there. I mean, it's you saw it on some of the videos. That's a 50-person conference room with a 10-foot screen behind you, a projection screen. And I mean, so it's a no joke there.
Yeah, I just looked it up. So for all the listeners that don't know, CBRE is a publicly traded company. So they're very large. You can find them on the New York Stock Exchange under CBG. So we're talking, big movers are making big moves in Houston to help this relief effort.
Yes, very much so. And, it's like you said, it's a community effort. And, you and I have talked about this over and over and over. And, we haven't heard from the other MLR teams. But I've already talked to people out there in different MLR teams, and they're all community-oriented. We've already seen what Glendale does as far as community orientation, right? So the model is already there. It's been laid out. What the Strikers are doing is following the model to a T, and because of their positioning as not being affiliated with anyone and willing to put themselves out there a bit, they're it's a high risk, high reward for them, right? They can put themselves out there and open themselves to all kinds of criticism, or they can put themselves out there and really be careful about how they present themselves and what they're doing, but make sure they're doing the right thing for the right reasons, the right way, and get a huge reward from it, which I think is happening. So,
in regards to all this stuff that the Strikers have done, I had only one criticism, and that was at the beginning when their head coach was hired because, I understand the Saracens, they were midseason, and I was like, this made no sense to me, but the Saracens are a very strong organization, and, knowing who the now CEO is of the Seattle Seawolves, there was no, bad blood. They're all Ulstermen. Everything is good to go. The Saracens were a strong enough club to, be able to let, their 4-year head coach go down to Houston to help build somebody else up. And then I'm more critical of the clubs I don't hear information from because they're not out there. Whereas Houston's in the media, this is free pub when it comes to their use of the media. Their help with Hurricane Harvey, that's not about media. That's about our community and helping our people and doing what we can to help our people. So, but their just use of the media has been amazing. And this is all free media. As I've talked about it on, our Reddit page, in our discussions, in the discussions with the team on Earful of Dirt, that, a local sports writer wants to write about local sports. So give him the opportunity so he's not writing about, some team 150 miles away or something like that. Because like all these, so I love what they're doing.
So I can tell you guys right now with Houston, I can promise you we've been swimming in the shallow end of the pool when it comes to news. Okay? I hope you guys got your flippers on and your floaties. Because we're fixing to ride the wave. I've already talked.
Sorry, go ahead.
I've already talking with 2 other teams and about what they want to do when they come out with information. So I would say be ready.
Will do.
Fantastic. Hey, Grant, one more question for you regarding Houston, the actual team. Were their facilities or their field impacted by the flooding at all?
So right now, the area where their field is going to be, where their stadium's going to be, was not impacted. That is a place where when they were digging out parts of downtown Houston to put in several other infrastructures, well, they got to do something with that dirt they dig out, right? And so what Houston typically does is they take that dirt they dig out, they move it out to the south end of town and have a piece of land that the city owns, and they dump it on and then even it out. Well, this is one of those pieces of land that got that about 25 years ago when they were digging out 288. Now, if you don't know anything about Houston and 288, maybe you do if you watch the Hurricanes, but 288, when it was dug out, it was designed to take, I want to say somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 million hectares of surface water. Okay, so yeah.
Okay,
That's a lot of water.
Yeah.
So when the flood gauges, when the rain gauges get to a certain point in Houston, they turn the pumps on at Buffalo Bayou and at Brays Bayou, right there where they cross over 288. But before they do that, they have the police department going down, clearing it. As they clear 288, police cars are going to the tops of the on ramps or off ramps and blocking them off so nobody can get on or off. And then a helicopter will fly over to make sure there's no stranded vehicles. And then they turn the pumps on. And that portion of 288 fills up. And it's, it's 2 football fields wide and about 7 miles long. So that was
actually planned. We saw a lot of those videos of the interstate flooded.
If you see places like 59 in the Montrose district, Montrose didn't flood. And the reason Montrose didn't flood, which it used to flood all the time, is because all that water goes into 59 and sits there until it can be pumped out safely. They clear the highway there, and so when they were digging all those trenches out, they had to put the dirt somewhere. They put it out south of town, the 34 acres that the strikers have right there south of Maury Road, where Maury Road almost tees into 288. That little section of land between Maury and Sims Bayou there is theirs, and it's at least 6 foot taller than everything around it. So even when Sims Bayou gets out of its bank, it can't get over that. And they're going to build up on top of that. So I'm not too worried about their facilities getting over. Their facilities are actually higher than the Houston Sports Park, which is right next door to them. So it's that. Yeah, I think Constellation Field, which is where they're going to play some of their first games before their facility is built, where they're going to play what they call their marquee games. It's a baseball diamond out in Sugar Land, and it's right in one of the bends of the Brazos River, and I'm pretty sure Constellation Field has some water on it right now. So, but yeah, we're going to see their games there here. I think the first one they've told me is January 6th, and they won't tell me who it's against. But as soon as I know, you'll know. Trust me. And we're all supposed to know in a couple of weeks.
All right.
Fantastic. Hey, anybody have anything else for Grant before we let him get back to his hard work down there?
No, like I said, Grant, if you want to stick around and, well, it seems Victor does, but like I said earlier, if you want to stick around and throw some comments in, some snide remarks and insults at myself, feel free, and handing off to Victor.
Yeah, Grant, what you're saying is that Houston's facilities are in a really good spot because they didn't get flooded with the hurricane, is what you're saying, correct?
That's correct, Victor. Basically, the way it's laid out, it's hard to get flooded. Now, wind out there is an issue. I will tell you that kicking at that stadium is going to be a dice throw. Okay. I mean, so you get a lot of places in the city, and you can kick with some relative sense of accuracy because of all the trees around. But there's no trees out there in the southeast part of town, and that wind's coming in off the Gulf, and it hadn't hit any of the big bayous yet, so it can't dip down and have any eddies to where it stops it up. So it's just coming on in. And we'll be out there at the Haas, which is right next door to where their field's going to be, and you'll have a straight-on kick from the 22 dead on in front of the post and have your best kicker out there kicking, and that wind will move that ball.
Man, poor fly halves. They're going to have a really bad day at work.
Games out there where the kick is nice and high. It goes 10 meters, and then the wind catches it, and it goes to the 10-meter line on the backside of where it's kicked from.
Wow.
So kickers are going to have some work. That's going to be a challenging thing. And listening to Justin talk about the kind of rugby he wants to play, I'm pretty sure that if you want to kick against him, you're going to have a long day.
Seriously.
So we had Justin and his wife Judy and their daughter Grace over at the house last night with all the Cy-Fair Warriors for a team feed, and he's just a salty the earth kind of guy. He's not your regular type. He's your regular type of Irishman. You know, the guy you sit in a bar and have a drink with. He's that typical Irish prop, and he's just so lovable, so easy to talk to, and it's really nice having somebody like that at the house and just sitting down, enjoying food, enjoying beer with. In fact, I've still got about 8 to 9 bottles of beer in the fridge that he brought over last night.
This guy, Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Well, you just let him know anytime he wants to come on the show. We'd love to have him. So next time you guys talk.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay. Hey, don't ask. Hey, Aaron, tell these people don't ask anything of me you don't really want.
Well, let's just say once Grant makes sure you're good to go, he hooks you up. So you better be ready to deliver on your end. This isn't a place for minnows. You better be willing to be a couple-year-old bass and swim upriver because he's going to throw you in deep. So I think, Victor, we've got a few more ways we can support the relief efforts for rugby relief. If you tell our folks about that before we get into our next topic.
Sounds good. Well, there are 2 shirts being sold to raise money for the relief efforts of Hurricane Harvey. So one is through Austin Elite, which actually some of you noticed that I bought one myself. That's through the merch store, and that's through the Rugby Relief Charity. And there's another one which is a group for Austin Ruggers from the Huns, Valkyries, and the Blacks running and helping coordinate down south. Actually, that's just that one. And then there's another one from, I think it's pronounced Shreveport. You guys correct me if I mispronounce that. Shreveport RFC, which is again selling a shirt to help raise money, and also some very good. I'm sorry, say again, Grant.
It's Shreveport, and Drew Tomczak, who is their who set all that up, is the D2 conference representative for Red River.
Well, thank you for the correction there. And they also have some really cool. It's a really cool kit, by the way, the shirt that they're selling as well.
So if you're watching online, those links are posted below. I made sure of it, and if it didn't come through, I will make sure it's unscrewed. We have tweeted and posted about them on the Facebook page earlier this week. I also purchased 2 of the Austin Elite and Rugby Relief shirts together. So that, as my girlfriend says, you can buy as much rugby stuff as you want. You just know the tax, and the tax is buying her stuff too. But so the next topic, Dan did a lot of homework this week after Boston RFC published their new grounds. So the photos that you see, from what I can tell and based on some dialogue on Facebook with Boston RFC, is the club ground and what I would think will be the MLR training facility. It's a multi-sport complex with 3 rugby pitches that will be all World Rugby certified. There is also going to be a gymnasium and bar right there. But the interesting thing was, if you looked at the Union Point, Massachusetts real estate development, is in the southwest corner is what looked to be, I guess you could estimate, probably a 10 to 15,000 fan stadium in the southeast corner of this development. And also across the way from that would be a minor league baseball field. So basically some discussions amongst the rugby media. We did some digging. And then if you go through the Secretary of State of Massachusetts, there is a new LLC filing for Boston Rugby Developments by a Mr. Jerry Shafir. And if you want to dig into him, well, let's just know that he sold a couple $100 million company back in 2012. He's a Boston Rugby Football Club old boy who's given back. He's has a significant financial stake in this field that they're developing with Union Point. He donated a bunch of money, and I'm pretty sure he will be part of what we're estimating right now and guessing as an MLR group to come in New England in 2019. Because you don't just build a 3-field World Rugby specific venue without a stadium, and then you go in ahead and look in the thing, and there's another ground like that would be on par with, say, Exeter in England with 15,000 seats. Off to Victor. Hello?
Oh, so yeah, no worries. I'm here. Sorry about that. Give me a second. So we're still talking about Boston, right? Sorry.
Yeah, man. Throw in your freaking thoughts.
Okay. Sorry.
We've already discussed earlier in the series about New York Rugby Club. Or Rugby Club New York, handled by Mr. James Kennedy of the Murphy Kennedy Group. So significant amount of money being thrown by what we think will be an MLR franchise in 2019. So Mr. Shafir, and I can't imagine that he's the only backer based on everything I understand about some of these other clubs. So I think there's as much money between 2 clubs as probably 3 times what Pro had behind it. So we're talking like, over $1 billion net worth between 2 clubs in this organization based on my beer math. And Creek Don't Rise is what I'm drinking. So Victor, yeah, what's your thoughts on Boston?
There we go. Sorry. So, because I was thinking of something else and I completely lost the train of thought. My apologies. Well, in any case, going back to Boston. So how fun to think that Boston Rugby and Rugby Club in New York could enter the league at the same time, bringing that famous New York City-Boston rivalry with them, finally from baseball and other sports, finally to rugby union. Also, because I heard people heard people talking about the Maryland, Virginia area with people sometimes refer to as the DMV, the first thing that comes to my mind is really the Department of Motor Vehicles. So that's what I thought we were talking about. So that's why I was like still thinking about that. And then you passed the word to me. So we're still talking about Boston. But yeah, I think it's really cool. So we could, again, the prospect of having the two East Coast teams from the two major cities in the region coming into the league at the same time.
And I think that's this is a good opportunity for us to kind of jump in and maybe talk a little bit about expansion and specifically what you guys would think would be a good opportunities for rivalries within expansion. So, Aaron, I know you'd kind of put together a list of potential expansion teams in the next few years. What's that list look like right now?
So let's see what we got. So Chicago Lions was confirmed for 2019. They were originally a founding member of this when this thing kicked off, but their facility just won't be ready. So they're coming on in 2019. So we got Chicago, Rugby Club New York, this SF group based on everything I've seen with Jean-Baptiste Gobelet running around the United States, Boston Rugby, and so we got 1, 2, and if you haven't seen it, Brian Ray broke a story about a new privately funded side out of Ontario called the Ontario Arrows. The private group that is funding them has secured the services of the Ontario Blues, so the province select side coaching staff, and then they're going to put together a side, and they're going to go on, I would call what I would say is a tour of a bunch of Division I clubs. So we got 5 teams possibly for 2019, 1 in Canada.
Interesting, because I don't know if you guys know this, but the Ontario Blues organization has a larger annual budget than USA Rugby does.
Jeez.
So I once said to one of our other friends, Grant, what if the state of Kentucky spent $20 million on rugby? Because that's Wales. That's like Wales, right? Or New Zealand. So 4.4 million people. What if just the SRO spent $20 million? Where would we be?
Well, you'd have to figure out how to spend that $20 million first, which Ontario Blues has actually done. They're one of the few rugby unions and rugby organizations up there that actually have development plans. And when you look at some of the young Canadian ruggers that are coming to the fore, a lot of them are out of the Ontario group, and there's no surprise there. So you're going to see a lot of these guys, getting contracts overseas where they can get contracts easier than Americans because they're still part of the Commonwealth. You're going to see, all kinds of different things happening in Ontario and maybe even Vancouver.
Well, that was,
don't count Vancouver out because remember, Vancouver. I was
going to say 2020.
Well, Vancouver was part of the North American Pro Rugby Initiative back in 2012. So there's some money up there that still wants to be involved in rugby. And if you know much about the North American Pro Rugby Initiative, it was Vancouver, it was Chang and San Jose, Glendale when it was still a municipality, not when it had private money, which they've learned their lesson from that, and the Strikers organization.
Oh wow!
So two of the 4 NAPR organizations are still in this. One of them learned some lessons. All of them learned a lot of lessons out of that. And that's one of the reasons why Jeremy Turner kept pushing forward. It's one of the reasons why when they had the first MLR, hey, let's meet up and have a face-to-face talk about it was in Houston. Because Houston has been at the forefront of this all along, even though a lot of people just haven't really been knowing about it. That's one of the reasons why I got into it back in 2011, 2012 is because I knew what was going to happen just from my contacts here. And then after that, I just kept up with everything that was going on. So don't count Vancouver out. Ontario, that's going to be a big player when they come online. So that's going to be a team that everybody's going to have to beat.
Yeah, I mean the Blues, not the Arrows, but their select side, the provincial select side, what they're able to do against our top Division I teams here this last year with guys that, you know, they're practicing intermittently from all across the province together, maybe, you know, 2 of those weekends out of the month they're practicing together. And then the next weekend they get on a bus to play Old Blue, or they get on a plane to go play Glendale Raptors so their elite side, you know, and they're posting up like that select side would probably be the Division I champion if they competed in the USA Rugby Championship pathway. So, I mean, what comes out of Vancouver and what comes out of Ontario, I know that what is there is very good. And the coaching at their provincial levels is also extremely professional, and they're developing highly technical players. It's just, you know, they're having some selection issues right now up there. I think that's why their coach got released. Whoops. But yeah, so I think the Ontario, the Canadian teams, I say 2019 for the Arrows, and then Vancouver in 2020, because we haven't heard anything from them. So I'm being safe on my expansion. I don't want to double the league size in 1 year based on you know, lessons learned from, say, Major League Lacrosse having, you know, 12 teams and then going down to 8 for like the middle part of their life.
So just mark me on this. You just may see the Ontario Arrows playing in some marquee matches against MLR teams in January and February this year.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll take it.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
So,
well, I love the idea of a Vancouver expansion as well, just because that really bolsters that West Coast opportunities. You know, we already have Seattle coming in, and if we get a couple California teams, who knows? Portland could field something. Who knows? You know, any number of cities up and down the coast there. Maybe even move into Arizona or New Mexico. That'd be fantastic eventually. So, as Aaron's saying, hallelujah.
Yeah, you definitely got a San Diego team coming on into 2018 instead of the Minneapolis idea. One fell through, the other picked up. And you know, word is that the San Diego entity did pay their bond money, and they paid in full, and they're ready to go.
So that's
good news.
That's always good to hear. I mean, the SoCal rugby, Southern California is like, when it comes to rugby, is one of the strongest areas, just as much as the corridor is here in Texas. So I understand getting into your markets and digging deep. I just know that in San Diego, cost of living is a pain. Jeez. So, I mean, that's where, like, when it came to California teams, that's where my hesitation was for the start of a league, is like living is going to be rough. But I mean, Americans do this all the time in other sports at the lower levels. I talk about single A rugby amongst rugby people all the time, not single A rugby, but single A baseball all the time, because guys will do, the young dudes, I'm not talking about the older dudes, but the young guys will do tons of stuff to chase the dream. And that includes living on $8,000 a year playing baseball. So some of these guys, not all of them, but some of them will do the same for rugby. And that's the beginning, because based on some conversations Grant and I have had, the intent is to have a livable wage, within the first 5 years of this league. So the moment there's a livable wage, quality and players they attract from overseas will just drive itself, So I think.
So guys, I have to leave in a few minutes.
All right.
To go pick my kid up from touch practice. So, but I want to leave you guys with this. Monday morning, not tomorrow, but Monday week, starts the player orientation week for the Houston Strikers. They expect to have about 40 professional rugby players in their offices going through orientation. The first week is all orientation. It's medical baseline, concussion baseline. It's a social media discipline. getting them sized up for uniforms and travel kit. All that kind of stuff is going to happen. And if you hear what I'm saying, you're hearing that they're treating this like a professional team. And when you listen to Jeremy Turner talk about what he wants to do, he wants this to be on par eventually with the Premiership, with what you see down in Super Rugby. You know, the spectacle, the running rugby, the excitement, but also the professionalism and the community involvement. He wants that to happen here. And they're making every effort to do that. This is not anything like club rugby we know of. Okay, this is professionalism. These guys get it from the word go. So I hope to be around some of their practices coming through the fall here and going out and sitting in and watching some of them. I know I'm going to be welcomed at those. And once I am, I hope to shoot a couple videos, maybe get those back to y'all, and you guys can use them here on the show.
Well, I'll tell you, Grant, appreciate you coming on today. And we sure love to have you tell us how folks can, if they don't see the videos here, how they can see those videos on your sites, on your Facebook and Twitter. I know you're all over the place. So how do folks connect with you?
So if you want to connect with me, you can go on Facebook to This Is Texas Rugby. That's one phrase, four words. This is Texas Rugby, or out on YouTube or on Twitter at This Is TX Rugby, which is there in my tagline there. And you can connect with me there. You can connect with me on Facebook, or just send me an email at grant.cole@gmail.com. Ask me some questions. That's fine there. When it comes to YouTube, pretty much all I do, I'm either going to put up on Facebook, or, you know, I'm going to be giving to Tori Rock. She's the social media guru for the Strikers, and letting her run with it as well, because, I mean, really, she knows much more about social media than I do, and she is a bundle of energy when it comes to this stuff. That's why you see so much, you know, that's all she does for the Strikers is their Facebook and their Twitter and all their other social media lines. She's something else. So it's really refreshing to see that they have actually hired one person just to do that, and a professional at that.
Well, thanks for coming on, Grant. And as the season comes on, hope to have you back.
Okay, and I hope to be back. And you guys, thank you for having me, and y'all have a great evening. I'll watch the rest of the show later.
You got it. Have a great night, Grant.
All right, bye.
Take care of yourself.
So I thought that was awesome, guys. But I know that the people at home want us to get on to the next topic. So the next topic for us is stadiums. And we don't really have a lot on stadiums so far. I think I always go back to what Diana Anderson, who is the marketing director at Rugby United Marketing, being run out of Infinity Park, which is the marketing firm for Major League Rugby. And she talked in a very in-depth interview with Matt McCarthy some months ago about what the minimum requirements were for a stadium at the time. And they may have shifted. We haven't heard. But she said at the time a 4,000 fan facility was the minimum, which is about the size of Infinity Park. I think Infinity Park can expand a little bit and get to about 6,000. She can, kick me later if I'm wrong. But and then the ability to broadcast and stream matches from professional and up-to-date press facilities. And then the ability to do fan activation. So fan activation is really a new term in the United States, but we actually do that very well with American sports between I wouldn't say like rewards memberships or anything, but selling stuff, having contests and all that fun stuff, fan participation within games. So we do a lot of that. If you saw the Obetz Fortress lacrosse opening day, they did tons of fan activation, giving out free stuff. So fan activation is like bobblehead nights, towel nights, and T-shirt nights, and then fans wearing those T-shirts and selling T-shirts, merch. Like basically, it's the Strikers facility or it's the Austin facility, and they're all wearing that stuff. And then they're participating at halftime and doing certain things. So those were the big things that Diana Anderson explained in her interview with Matt McCarthy. But so let's go into what I have for sizes right now. the first phase of the Austin facility at Nixon Lane, and it's built for rapid expansion with this French company that they're working with, and who, Austin Elite will give you anyone the contact to work with this company, because whether it's a high school, a college that needs to, do a fast build on a stadium at economical prices, and it's pretty amazing what their portfolio shows. So the first phase of Austin is going to be a 4,000-seat stadium at Nixon Lane. And like I said, built for expansion out to originally planned at 11,000. Houston first will play at Constellation Field. I do not know who their builder is, but their first phase for a 4,000-seat ground plus parking is scheduled to be open before April. So they haven't broken ground, thankfully, due to Hurricane Harvey, as it would have sort of stranded their construction crew out on what is basically termed as a mountain in the south end of Houston, because of it's already a site that's been filled due to excavation previously on construction projects. They only need 3 months to complete phase 1, so that's very important. So they'll be out of Constellation Field before the baseball team gets home from spring training. And then we have Glendale Infinity Park, which I call the standard facility in the league. They are just putting in a new strength and conditioning building. And then the next project that is already underway is where we all believe Rugby Utah Selects will play, and that is at the Real Salt Lake Academy. The Real Salt Lake Academy will have multiple training pitches, and the game pitch, which I believe will be shared with the Real Monarchs, their USL Division II team, is I believe it's an 8,000 to 10,000 seat stadium currently under construction out in Harriman, Utah. The NOLA Gold previously stated, their GM, Ryan Fitzgerald, I think it is, that they are building a 3,000 seat stadium. So that is a discrepancy. So there might have been a change. I don't know. So that is phase 1. And we're trying to figure out what the exact minimums are for all of the other stuff, because I think a 3,000 to 4,000 seat stadium in year 1 is about right. But it's all the fan activation and press facilities, broadcast facilities that are really important. Corey, Victor.
Yeah, very good. So we also want to take an opportunity here just to hit on some sports agency news. So we got some folks coming into the space, setting up shop here in the U.S. and actually gone through and are digging up some American players already. Aaron, I know you did some digging around and some reporting on that this week.
Yeah. So this is some great stuff. So there's a French sporting agency called DigiDust Sport. They decided, we've already seen the Professional Rugby Agency, which I believe is headquartered in the Denver area. They've already, with their press release on NOLA Gold, they signed Alex Tchaikovsky. So sports agencies are already taking a big interest in this league. DigiDust Sport has over 100 players rugby players in France, which is, awesome. So they decided to establish an American headquarters. I think this says a lot that they're going to hire also a rugby player. I think his name is Tag Leader. I don't really know how you pronounce this Irish name, so if he wants to also send me a correction, please do so in our email at earfulofdirt@gmail.com. Tag Leader, he's a former Lindenwood player and I would say now former St. Louis Royals player. The St. Louis Royals also won the Division III national title. He's moving down to Florida as the chief operating officer for their American headquarters. The first 2 signings happen to be some relatively famous young names in the American rugby space, and that is Malone Al-Jabouri and Salm Wuching. So, guys, what does that really say about the confidence and the stability of our league that we are talking about today? It hasn't even started.
Seriously. Well, I'll tell you this. It's just a lot compared to how pro rugby was, which didn't have something like this. Now, obviously, we're still not sure if Al-Jaburi and Wujin are signing for an MLR side, but if they are, it tells others the league is worth playing and that the payments will be made. That's another discussion.
So,
I would just also say that I think this is another step in the U.S. as far as building the reputation of rugby in the States and just building our credibility internationally, to have an international company like this set up shop here in the U.S. and to be looking for that American talent as well as managing overseas talents from here is part of building the game in the States. I think it's an important part, and I think it can do nothing but benefit MLR. Even if the first few years we don't see a lot of representation and signing, that's going to come too. And anytime we can get our boys overseas to get them experience, that's just going to help the national team when they come back stateside and can bring some of that experience and some of that talent that they've earned over in Europe or wherever they're playing. So I think it's nothing but a good thing. Aaron, I know you had some other thoughts.
So the founders of Digidest Sport were Damien Dussault, Stéphane Meneret, and Pierre-Olivier Caro. And Pierre agreed to come on the podcast sometime in the future. So it'll be great to talk to some sports agency folks and see what their confidence is in the league. And, you know, I think we've got to hit up our favorite segment. And I say our favorite segment because it's always involved. It could involve trolling, but it's all about getting it done. Corey with the tweet of the week.
Yeah, I love how this was supposed to be Dan's segment, and somehow I've inherited it. So we got to get him back on air so he can take this over from me. All right, guys. Like Aaron said, this is one of our favorite things already. So it's that special time of the week where I get to read out an emoji-laden tweet. This time around, we're going to go ahead and head northwest. Welcome the Seattle Seawolves to the Twitterverse. They've recently started becoming more and more active as that team's getting underway and getting some planning done. And this week, they actually retweeted a quote from the Seahawks coach, so kind of trading sides there, going a little football on us, from Pete Carroll, who it was quoted as saying, "Stay hungry, remain humble, and get better today." And to emphasize the quote, when they retweeted it, first they put up a fist emoji. Very necessary. So fist emoji at Pete Carroll, hashtag Seattle, hashtag rugby, hashtag MLR, and then finished with a rugby ball. And then the quote. So again, let's just go through that. Fist, tag at Pete Carroll, at hashtag Seattle, hashtag rugby, hashtag MLR, rugby ball emoji.
Nice. So that's
it is. We also like to spend a little time hitting up some rumors and some news just from around the league. So, Aaron, what you got going on this week?
So, everyone knows, like we talked about, I wouldn't say it was broken on here, but it was discussed on Reddit about the opening fixture of the Strikers on January 6th at Constellation Field. No idea who the opponent is. Maybe it's the Ontario Arrows. Probably. High-quality opponent. That's what they want. However, here's the good stuff. They're going to play 3 fixtures against Texas Division I clubs in November and December. The format seems a lot like the All Blacks Counties match, which is like 2 20-minute halves or separated into quarters. And what's funny about that is that's how Sonny Bill Williams got to play in the first match of the Bledisloe and take that massive concussion, against Australia. Instead of having to be suspended for that match, he got credit for the All Blacks versus Counties match. So, Victor, you've got something juicy, or it might be something throwaway. I'm not sure.
Well, Aaron, I think it's juicy, but you tell me once I tell you. So at the end of a local news article, from Get That Sport, the Belmont Shore director of rugby, Tony Balasuriya, which I just found out is the last name from Sri Lanka, stated they were looking at starting a professional side, which is not too shabby. They were a member of the Old Super League, if some of you remember, back from the 90s to the 2000s, and the structure fits with what MLR is looking for. And again, they already have that former professional league experience, if you may.
Yeah, I think as far as a community program, you're looking at one of the strongest clubs in SoCal, from the LA area to the San Diego County area. And MLR has completely stated that supportive community rugby, whether it was cash or action, has been a big thing. So I think if of any club in LA, Belmont Shore is one that can easily sustain a professional side, because they have multiple sides, multiple youth sides, multiple high school sides, a women's side, and a big coaching staff to fill all that out. So it could be juicy, or it could be connected to another SoCal team that's going to launch, or it could be throwaway. I'm not sure. It was just at the end of an article on a Friday news dump.
No, that's really interesting, though. Anytime we're getting news out of the LA region, I think that's valuable to discuss, because it's one of the big three markets that we got to get established in. So I'm still holding out hope for my Chicago Lions coming on soon. So I'd love to see NYC and LA on that list. So what do you guys
the
say?
Aviator, Charlie.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe that'll happen someday, too. They got a hell of a stadium there in Obet, so.
You build a stadium and you have no one to fill it with? Come on, bring that back some Ohio love.
Yep. So, guys, I think it's time for some questions from Bob. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right. This week, Bob Boberson wants to know, which position in the U.S. would benefit most from mentorship from foreign players? So who would really get the most out of having overseas players come here and teach our ruggers how to play?
I mean, I'm not a prop, but I'm a front row guy. I'm a hooker. And for me, so the halves and the props. So both the number 9 and number 10, the scrum half and the fly halves, and then the tight head and the loose head are really the most technical positions on the field. And Dan said flanker. Dan's not here, so that ain't gonna work. But you can't. A lot of people think, and this is what he said in his notes, a lot of people think you can just stick, some big guys up in the front row at tight head and loose head. And the reality is it's much like offensive and defensive linemen, and it's very important. It's not a true conversion, because people talk about the line in football as not being skill players, but we're talking the offensive and defensive line are very there's very hard skills in football, just as much so in rugby. Props sometimes are an afterthought, but scrummaging skills are some of the most technical skills on the field. So that technical coaching is what's going to be important, and technical older players is what's going to be really important, because the reality is that's where we're losing our matches, is in the scrum. Nick?
I completely agree with those positionings as well, Aaron. Both the props, the hookers, scrum half, fly half, definitely. And it's true that for the U.S. Eagles, that's where we're losing most of our games and where we're getting most of our penalties in the scrum. I mean, just look at that Ireland game, the Georgia game. We got destroyed. Heck, the first Canada game also. So, yeah, I completely agree that those positions, especially the front row, the U.S. Eagles right now.
Bob was also asking about a preseason, and I know we kind of hit on that a little bit earlier. If we look at plus or minus 2 games for a preseason setup ahead of the MLR season. But Aaron, did you have anything to add to that?
So he said plus or minus 2. I think we're going to look at just the way you do the addition by not really addition by subtraction, but addition by addition of the premiership, because during the during the Six Nations over that 7-week period, they also have the Anglo-Welsh Cup, which aren't throwaway games for guys that don't make those sides. So a bunch of Americans get plenty of opportunities to make it. And that's how Joe Tofate became a starter for Worcester. But you're going to see during the ARC window a bunch of preseason matches. But right now, just for November and December, the Strikers confirmed 3 fixtures. So I'm going to say plus or minus is 6. 3 before Christmas and 3 after Christmas. Before you even face an MLR side. Plus or the line is 6. That's what I'm saying.
That's interesting. Victor, what do you think?
Yeah, just about the numbers. Yeah, about 2 or so, definitely. But I do hope that the games are with opposition from the league, so it's like to whet our appetite to a certain extent. But I'm not opposed to games against D1 sides or having teams for kind of like the Arrows or the BC Bears coming down. So for preseason, yeah.
I can also see that as an opportunity to start testing out some of these premier sides or, semi-pro sides for teams that are looking at expansion. So let's say San Fran or someplace like that wants to come in the next few years, and they start an elite squad, but it's not fully professional yet. It might be the chance we see for them to kind of start working in, start getting to know that style of play and get to know the places they're going to play ahead of actual launch. So I think there's some real possibilities there, especially right now at the beginning when things are still a little squishy, not quite so formalized. Well, guys, I think we're wrapping up here. So we do have a quick correction from last week's show. So what's going on with that?
So how do you say O'Shea Kalinisau?
Osea Kalinisau. Aaron,
so I should actually say it like
yeah,
say it normally.
Yeah, like
Kalinisau. Okay.
Osea Kalinisau.
So we got. I know it's Tchaikovsky, but
yeah, right.
Kwasniewski or something.
Kwasniewski. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, Kwasniewski.
All right.
You still said it wrong, but that's okay.
We really got to work on this before things get serious around here.
Yes, we do.
Also, real quick, guys, dziękuję, or thank you to my friend Maggie from Poland who helped me with the pronunciations. So thank you, Maggie.
All right. Outstanding. So
shout out to Maggie.
Shout out to Baylor Rugby Club. I saw you guys practicing yesterday when I went and saw my girlfriend's alma mater get their butt beat in by Liberty University. So I dislike Liberty, which we can get into on another podcast. But if you're a Liberty rugger, good for you. So that's all I got, guys. I think Corey, you're gonna tell the fans about our schedule change.
Sorry about that. I was getting set up for the end of the show here. Yeah, absolutely. So here's the deal. We've been talking it through, and I think there's several reasons for this, but we're going to switch to a Monday night schedule from a Sunday night schedule. So update your calendars. Go ahead and be ready to chill with us on Monday nights, and then the shows will be loaded Monday night into Tuesday, and it'll be ready for your Tuesday morning commute. So yeah, that's nothing's changing with the format, and we're still working towards getting this thing down to an hour. We'll get there eventually. We're a lot closer this week than we were last week. So yeah, just stay tuned. And so I'm going to switch over, and I'll let you guys talk for just a couple minutes. Anything, or just a minute here. Anything else you wanted to say before we close out the show? Victor?
Yeah, quickly, 2 things. First, in case you were wondering about Dan, because we didn't even mention him at the beginning of the show. I'm sorry, Dan. He is kind of busy. For those of you that are not American, this week for September 4th is Labor Day here in the States. So he went with the family. So hopefully he's having a lot of fun. And of course, happy Labor Day for those of you not working tomorrow, Monday.
So I did the math. Dan gets a pass for this week because he put in work. Last week, he no longer gets a pass because he went to see The Lion King. So
Yeah, I agree.
Dan put in some work, so I think that is about it for us. Corey, take us out.
Good night.
I can't hear it. Technical difficulties.
Bam, bam, bam.
Press the button. All right.